Freeze. Right there. See her face? That's the exact microsecond her brain realized, I'm caught. In exactly 14 minutes, I'm going to show you the 8-second moment that destroyed this woman's entire scam. But first, you need to see how she walked into that courtroom, because what she did with her eyes in the first 3 seconds. Even I didn't catch it the first time. This video has been watched 87 million times. Law enforcement agencies use it in fraud detection training. Body language experts have analyzed every frame. And there's one single moment. I'm talking about a span of time shorter than this sentence, where a golden retriever did what 6 months of investigation couldn't do. She exposed a woman faking total blindness, not with technology, not with medical tests. With a simple behavioral test so elegant, so undeniable, that the faker's own body betrayed her before her brain could stop it. The woman's name was Karen Mitchell. She walked into Judge Judy's courtroom wearing dark sunglasses, carrying a white cane, and claiming she couldn't see her own hand in front of her face. She was suing a 73-year-old veteran for $15,000. She had medical paperwork from a doctor. She had a performance rehearsed down to the last detail. What she didn't have was a plan for Bailey. Bailey was the dog. And Bailey was about to become the most famous fraud detector in television history. But here's the thing that makes this story absolutely insane. Stop right here. I need something from you before we go further. Hit that like button right now. And I'm going to tell you exactly why. You're about to watch a master class in human psychology, deception detection, and instant karma. But more importantly, you're going to learn the 3 tells that Karen gave away in the first 30 seconds that Judge Judy spotted immediately. Tells that would have saved the veteran 6 months of stress if anyone else had known what to look for. So like this video right now, because you're going to want to save this. You might need it someday. Good. Now let's destroy this faker. Comment below where you're watching from. I want to know how global this is going. Let me take you back 6 months before this courtroom moment. Frank Morrison was 73 years old, Vietnam veteran, Purple Heart recipient, 2 tours, the kind of man who still stood when a woman entered a room and called everyone sir or ma'am. He lived alone in a small house he'd paid off over 30 years. His wife had passed 5 years earlier. His veteran's pension was $1,847 a month. After medications for his service-related health issues, he had maybe $600 left for food, utilities, and everything else. Frank shopped at the same grocery store every Thursday at 2 p.m. Same routine for 10 years. The staff knew him, he knew them. He was that kind of regular. On October 14th, Frank was loading groceries into his 2003 Toyota when he backed up slightly. His shopping cart, and I want you to understand how minor this was, his shopping cart's corner barely grazed another cart in the parking lot. We're talking about a touch so light that Frank almost didn't notice it. But he did notice, because that's who Frank was. He immediately got out, looked around for the cart's owner, and saw a woman about 20 feet away talking on her phone. He walked over. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. I think my cart just bumped yours." "Is everything all right? Are you okay?" The woman, Karen Mitchell, looked at her cart, looked at Frank, and said, "Oh, no problem at all. These things happen." "Have a good day." Frank apologized again. She smiled, and they both went about their days. Frank thought nothing of it. 2-week Karen Mitchell was suing him for $15,000, claiming that his violent collision had caused her shopping cart to strike her in the abdomen, causing her to fall backward, hit her head on the pavement, and suffer a traumatic brain injury that resulted in complete, permanent, bilateral blindness, total blindness. From a shopping cart that barely touched another shopping cart, Frank read the lawsuit 3 times, thinking it had to be a mistake. There was no collision, no fall, no injury. He'd been there. This didn't happen. He called the phone number on the legal papers. Got Karen's lawyer. Tried to explain. The lawyer cut him off. "Mr. Morrison, my client has medical documentation of her injuries. She's now legally blind. She's lost her job. Her life is destroyed. You can either pay the settlement we're offering, or we'll see you in court where the jury will award much more." But there was no injury. I was there. It's your word against a disabled woman's medical records. I'd advise you to settle. Legal fees alone will cost you more than $15,000. Frank couldn't afford $15,000. He couldn't afford $1,500. He definitely couldn't afford lawyers. But I'll let this stand. He'd served his country. He'd lived his life honestly. He wasn't going to pay money for something that never happened. So Frank did the only thing he could do. He showed up to court alone, with no attorney, no evidence except his memory, and a prayer that someone would believe the truth. Later, he got served with a lawsuit. What Frank didn't know was that Judge Judy had already started to dismantle Karen's story before the trial even began. And she'd prepared something that would expose Karen in a way that medical experts, private investigators, and lawyers couldn't. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because you need to see how Karen prepared for this performance. Karen Mitchell was 47 years old. She'd never been blind a day in her life. She had perfect 20/20 vision. What she did have was credit card debt totaling $47,000, a car repossession notice, and an eviction warning. She'd been fired from her last 3 jobs, once for faking a workplace injury to get workers' comp, once for time theft, and once for stealing from the register. Karen had figured out a system: target elderly people in minor incidents, claim catastrophic injury, sue for amounts just below what it would cost them to fight, and settle quickly. She'd done this twice before with fender benders. One settled for $8,000, one for $12,000. Easy money from people who couldn't afford lawyers. But this time, Karen decided to go bigger. Fake blindness, the ultimate sympathy card, impossible to disprove without extensive medical testing that small claims court wouldn't order. And if the target was a veteran, even better. Juries loved veterans, meaning they'd pressure the vet to settle rather than face trial. Karen found a doctor who would forge medical records for $800. She bought a white cane for $45. She watched YouTube videos on how blind people navigate. She practiced walking with her eyes closed. She rehearsed her testimony until she could cry on command. She targeted Frank Morrison specifically because she'd researched him. Elderly, alone. Veteran's pension meant he had some money but not enough to fight. Perfect victim. The shopping cart incident was random, but Karen saw an opportunity. No witnesses had been paying attention. No cameras in that section of the parking lot. Her word against his, she spent 2 weeks practicing her blind person routine. Head tilted, sunglasses always on. White cane sweeping, hesitant movements, trembling voice when describing her new life of darkness. She even posted on social media about how she was learning to navigate my new reality and finding strength in blindness, building a digital paper trail. Karen thought she'd covered everything. What she didn't account for was Judge Judy's 30 years of experience spotting liars. And she definitely didn't account for Bailey, because here's what Karen didn't know. Judge Judy had already spotted 3 massive red flags in Karen's medical paperwork before the trial even started, and one of those red flags was so obvious that it should have ended the case immediately. Want to know what it was? Okay, I'm going to tell you, but first, I need you to pay very close attention to what I'm about to show you, because this is the kind of detail that separates real blindness from fake blindness. And if you ever, God forbid, end up on a jury for a disability case, this knowledge might be the difference between justice and fraud. Here's what Judge Judy spotted. Karen's medical records claimed she suffered traumatic brain injury causing bilateral optic nerve damage on October 14th. But her first doctor's visit wasn't until October 28th, 2 full weeks later. Think about that. You go completely blind from a head injury and you wait 14 days to see a doctor. Judge Judy looked at that timeline and immediately knew something was wrong. No one goes blind and waits 2 weeks for medical attention. You go to the emergency room that day, that hour. So she started digging. She found the doctor who signed Karen's paperwork, Dr. Richard Westbrook. She called his office. His receptionist had no record of Karen Mitchell as a patient. She called the medical board. Dr. Westbrook had been flagged 3 times in the past 5 years for signing questionable disability documentation. He was under investigation. Judge Judy pulled Karen's social media, found posts from after the alleged injury showing Karen at restaurants, shopping, doing normal activities. None of the posts mentioned blindness until October 27th, the day before her first doctor visit. Then Judge Judy did something brilliant. She contacted the grocery store where the alleged incident occurred, asked for their insurance records. The store's insurance had no claim filed by Karen. The store's incident log had no report from October 14th. She pulled the parking lot camera footage. It showed Frank's cart barely touching Karen's cart. It showed Karen on her phone, not even looking at the carts. It showed no fall, no injury. Nothing. Karen had lied about every detail. But Judge Judy didn't want to just dismiss the case. She wanted to expose the fraud so completely, so publicly, that Karen would never try this again. And she wanted to do it in a way that would teach millions of viewers how to spot fake disability claims. So Judge Judy made a call to the courthouse services coordinator. Do we still have Bailey available for demonstrations? Bailey was a certified service dog who worked with the courthouse to demonstrate accessibility accommodations. Beautiful golden retriever, impeccably trained, and about to become the star of the most watched courtroom moment in television history. Judge Judy had a plan. A test so simple that Karen wouldn't see it coming. A test that would force Karen's body to betray her lie before her brain could stop it. But I'm getting ahead of the story, because you need to see Karen's performance first. You need to see how confident she was, how committed to the lie. Because what makes the exposure so satisfying is watching that confidence shatter in 8 seconds. The bailiff called the case Mitchell versus Morrison, plaintiff alleging personal injury. The courtroom door opened. Karen entered like she was auditioning for an Oscar. She stumbled slightly at the threshold. Too much, too theatrical. Her white cane swept in exaggerated arcs, nearly hitting her own lawyer. Someone, her lawyer's assistant, clearly rehearsed, guided her gently by the elbow. Karen's head was tilted at that angle people think blind people hold, which, if you know any actually blind people, you know is not how they navigate. She wore dark sunglasses despite being indoors. Her steps were hesitant, uncertain. She reached out with her free hand as if feeling for obstacles, even though she was being guided. She sat down in the plaintiff's chair and let out this heavy, tragic sigh, the kind of sigh that says, "My life is so hard now." Judge Judy watched all of this with zero expression. But, and this is important, Judge Judy was watching Karen's feet. Because here's the thing about people faking blindness. They always overperform with the upper body, the cane, the hands, the head position, but they forget about the feet. And Karen's feet moved with perfect confidence. No shuffling, no hesitation. The feet of someone who could see exactly where she was going. Strike when the case began. Karen's lawyer stood up, all polished and professional. Your Honor, my client, Ms. Mitchell, has suffered a devastating injury that has robbed her of her sight. She's here today, despite her disability, to seek justice for. I've read the complaint, Judge Judy interrupted. Ms. Mitchell, you claim you're completely blind. Correct? Karen turned her head toward Judge Judy's voice too precisely. Most blind people, especially newly blind, overshoot or undershoot when orienting to sound. Karen's head turned exactly the right amount. Strike two. Yes, Your Honor, Karen said, her voice soft and trembling. I can't see anything, not even light. My doctor confirmed complete bilateral vision loss. Judge Judy nodded slowly. How long have you been blind, Ms. Mitchell? Since October 14th, the day of the incident. And you're sure you can't see anything? No shapes? No shadows? Nothing, Your Honor. It's all just darkness. Karen's voice cracked. She reached up to touch her sunglasses as if to hide tears, except her fingers stopped exactly 1 inch before the glasses. She didn't fumble, didn't misjudge the distance. Her hand knew exactly where her face was. Strike three. Judge Judy had seen enough. Time to spring the trap. Miss Mitchell, Judge Judy said, her voice neutral but carrying that edge regular viewers recognize as danger. I understand that navigating a courtroom must be very difficult for you in your condition. Yes, Your Honor. It's very challenging. Karen dabbed at her eyes beneath the sunglasses. Well, I want to make sure you're comfortable and have the accommodations you need, so I've arranged for someone to assist you. Karen's lawyer looked confused. Frank looked lost. The courtroom was silent. Judge Judy nodded to her bailiff. Petrie, please bring in Bailey. The courtroom door opened, and a golden retriever walked in, wearing an official service dog vest, her tail wagging gently, her eyes bright and intelligent. Pause. Let the tension builds now. I want you to watch what happens to Karen's body language in the next 5 seconds. Because this is where her subconscious starts to panic, even though her conscious mind doesn't know why yet. Bailey walked calmly into the courtroom, her handler beside her. The dog's nails made soft clicking sounds on the tile floor. The courtroom went completely quiet except for that sound. Click, 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 and Karen's head turned, slightly, toward the sound. Not unusual. Blind people orient to sound. But watch her shoulders. They tensed. Watch her hands on the armrests. Her grip tightened. Some part of Karen's brain knew something was wrong. Knew this wasn't in the script, Judge Judy explained, her voice friendly, helpful. Mrs. Mitchell, this is Bailey. Bailey is a certified courthouse service dog who assists individuals with visual impairments. Since you're claiming total blindness and we have several more questions to go through, I thought Bailey could help guide you up to the bench so we can continue your testimony more comfortably. Karen's mouth opened, closed. She forced a smile. That's very kind, Your Honor, but I'm fine here. I don't want to be any trouble. Oh, it's no trouble at all. Bailey loves her job. Don't you, Bailey? The dog's tail wagged at the sound of her name, Judge Judy continued. Now, Mrs. Mitchell, I'm going to have Bailey approach you. She's trained to work with blind individuals, so she'll stop directly in front of you. Standard protocol is that she approaches from the right side. When you sense her presence, you can reach down and take her harness, and she'll guide you safely to the bench. Karen's face, even behind the sunglasses, showed the first crack of uncertainty. Your Honor, I really don't need, I insist. We want to make sure you have every accommodation available. The handler gave Bailey a soft command. The dog began walking toward Karen's chair. Click, click, click. And this is where everything changes. Bailey walked across the courtroom, complete silence, except for her paws on the tile. No barking, no panting. Just the steady, measured pace of a service dog doing her job. Karen's head tracked the sound. Normal. Expected. Blind people do this, but, and here's the critical detail, Karen's eyes behind those dark sunglasses were moving. Judge Judy could see the subtle shifting of the sunglasses angle. Karen was visually tracking the dog's movement. Bailey reached a spot about 6 feet from Karen's chair. The handler gave another soft command and Bailey stopped, sat, positioned herself directly in Karen's path if Karen were to stand and walk forward. Judge Judy watched Karen like a hawk. "Miss Mitchell, Bailey is approaching you now. She's very close. You should be able to hear her." Karen nodded. I can hear her breathing, except Bailey wasn't breathing heavily. Service dogs are trained to be calm and quiet. There was nothing to hear. "Good," Judge Judy said. "Now, I'm going to ask you to stand up, take your cane, and walk toward my bench. Bailey will remain where she is. Use your cane the way you normally would to navigate. Can you do that for me?" Karen's hands were shaking now, visible trembling. "Your Honor, I'm not sure It's okay, take your time. I just want to see how you navigate an unfamiliar space for the record, so we can properly assess your disability claim." Karen had no choice. Refusing would look suspicious. She stood slowly, her white cane in hand. The entire courtroom was silent. Frank leaned forward. Karen's lawyer looked like he wanted to object but didn't know what to object to. Karen extended her cane in front of her, started sweeping it side to side in those same exaggerated arcs she'd been doing. She took one step forward. Judge Judy's voice: "Bailey is still sitting directly in your path, Ms. Mitchell, about 3 feet ahead of you." Karen nodded, took another step. Her cane swept the floor 2 feet from Bailey now, and then Karen's cane swept to the left, swept to the right, and then her next step, went to the left, around the dog. She stepped around Bailey, not into her, not detected by her cane. She visually saw where Bailey was sitting and physically adjusted her path to avoid her. Someone who cannot see, cannot step around an obstacle they haven't detected yet. The courtroom gasped. You could hear the collective intake of breath from everyone watching. Judge Judy's voice was ice. "Mrs. Mitchell, how did you know Bailey was sitting there?" Karen froze mid-step. Her brain was trying to catch up to what her body had just done. I heard her. I heard her breathing. Bailey hasn't made a sound in 45 seconds. The courtroom has been completely silent. How did you hear her?" "I felt the air movement. When she sat down, I felt the air move." Judge Judy stood up from her bench, walked around to the front, approached Karen directly. "Mrs. Mitchell, the air condition this courtroom is climate controlled. There is no air movement. You stepped around a dog sitting silently on the floor. The only way you could have done that is if you saw her." Karen's hands went to her sunglasses, adjusting them nervously. "No, I swear, I didn't see. Remove your sunglass, Your Honor. The light, you're completely blind. How would light hurt eyes that don't function? Remove them, now." Karen's hands were shaking violently as she slowly took off the sunglasses. Her eyes were perfectly normal. No cloudiness, no damage, no signs of injury whatsoever. Her pupils contracted normally in the courtroom light, a reflex that requires functioning optic nerves. Judge Judy held up 3 fingers. "How many fingers am I holding up?" Karen stared straight ahead, trying to maintain her character. "I can't see anything, Your Honor." "I'm telling you, your eyes are tracking my hand. You're looking directly at my fingers. You can see me, Miss Mitchell." The walls were closing in. Karen's performance was crumbling. Maybe there's some residual vision I didn't know about. Maybe the doctor was wrong about. The doctor whose office has no record of you as a patient." Karen's face went white. "The doctor who's currently under investigation for disability fraud?" Karen tried to speak. No words came. Judge Judy pulled out documents. "Mrs. Mitchell, I have the parking lot surveillance footage from October 14th. Would you like to see it?" "Oh, wait, you can't see it, can you?" "Let me describe it for you. It shows Mr. Morrison's shopping cart barely grazing yours. It shows you on your phone, not even looking at the carts. It shows no fall, no injury, no contact with your body whatsoever." Karen's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, if I may." "Sit down, counselor. I'm talking to your client." Judge Judy turned back to Karen. "You want to know the moment I knew you were faking? Before you even walked in here? Your medical records claim you went blind from traumatic optic nerve damage on October 14th, but you didn't see a doctor until October 28th. You posted on social media about normal activities on October 20th. You drove your car? Yes. I have traffic camera footage. You drove your car to your lawyer's office on November 3rd. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "I can explain." "Oh, I can't wait to hear this explanation." And then it all came out. Not because Karen wanted to confess, but because her brain just gave up trying to maintain the lie. She admitted the fake injury, admitted the forged medical records, admitted paying Dr. Westbrook $800 to create fake paperwork, admitted that she'd done this twice before to other elderly people who'd settled to avoid court. Frank sat in his chair, vindicated but horrified that someone had tried to destroy his life over literally nothing. Karen's lawyer was already gathering his papers. Preparing to withdraw from representation, Judge Judy's ruling was swift and brutal. Mrs. Mitchell, your case is dismissed with prejudice. You will be charged with fraud, perjury, filing false medical documents, and attempted extortion. Bailiff, please escort Ms. Mitchell to holding. She's now in police custody pending arraignment. Karen was led out, sobbing, her sunglasses forgotten on the floor, her white cane left leaning against the chair. Bailey sat calmly throughout, her tail wagging, waiting for her next command. Frank got to pet Bailey on his way out. The dog had saved him from financial ruin with one simple behavioral test, 8 seconds. That's how long it took from the moment Bailey sat down to the moment Karen stepped around her and exposed herself. 8 seconds that have been watched 87 million times and counting. Dog Detective trended worldwide for 2 weeks. Bailey's handler started an Instagram for her. She now has 340,000 followers. People send her fan mail. Karen Mitchell was convicted of multiple counts of fraud. 18 months in prison. Ordered to repay $48,000 to 3 other victims she'd scammed the same way. Dr. Westbrook lost his medical license permanently. Frank Morrison received a formal apology and $10,000 from a legal defense fund for veterans. He also got a visit from Bailey and her handler. They're friends now. Bailey visits him monthly. The clip is now used in fraud investigation training for insurance companies and law enforcement. It's taught in law schools as an example of creative evidence gathering. Body language experts have analyzed every microsecond of Karen's reactions. One dog, one simple test, one faker who forgot that you can train your conscious mind to lie, but you can't train your subconscious to stop reacting to visual stimuli. If those 8 seconds gave you chills, if you felt that surge of justice, destroy that like button right now. Seriously, hit it so hard your screen cracks. Comp Bailey is the hero if that dog just became your favorite courtroom witness ever. And subscribe, because next week I'm breaking down the case of a woman who faked a service dog and got exposed by airport security cameras in the most embarrassing way possible. You can fool humans. You can fool cameras. You can fool lawyers and doctors. But you can't fool a real service dog. And you definitely can't fool Judge Judy. Bailey didn't need to bark, didn't need to alert, didn't need to do anything except exist as an obstacle. And that was enough, because the truth is always simple. Lies are complicated. And this woman's lie collapsed the moment her body reacted to something her character claimed she couldn't see. Share this video with anyone who thinks they're a good liar. Show them what happens when instinct beats deception. Your brain will always betray your lies. Always.